Pursuit of Growth live chat. Let me see if I get this one right. Number 8. I'm Greg Brinkley, and I'm joined by my pal, Sammy Gonzalez.
Hey there, everybody. Good to see you again. Greg, I always enjoy these topics and these conversations that we have. And this time, I think we nailed that introduction. If anyone wants to go back and see a couple of train wrecks, feel free to watch any of the other intro videos we've done in the past. But I like this. And you know what it goes down to? The ability to plan, the ability to put in the work. And I think it goes right along with having a little bit of confidence, which is what we're talking about today. So I think that's a perfect segue into today's topic, chapter 5, actually, in the book on confidence.
Yes, and so speaking of the book, The Pursuit of Growth, A Lifestyle to Flourish in Today's World will be available, we hope, in 2 weeks. We've had to push back our go-to market time frame just to make sure that we have a few final details ready to rock and roll, which I believe we do. And now it's just kind of a few more weeks of waiting, and then we'll be ready to start moving forward. But very excited about the book, and I think this is a chapter that I hope resonates with a lot of people. I know it definitely still resonates with me, and I think it always will. But it really just goes into confidence or self-confidence and belief in ourselves and the different aspects of life that matter to us. And I thought I'd start with just reading how we define confidence in the book, Sammy. And we say that confidence is the state of feeling certain about the truth of something, a feeling of self-assurance arising from appreciation of one's own abilities or qualities. And so, people have asked me in the past, what's the difference between self-belief and confidence? And the response that I've told people is I view those two words differently based on the following. My self-belief is the belief that I have the ability to obtain confidence in something. So for instance, if I want to learn how to take on a new task, my self-belief tells me that I have the belief that over time I can get there and I can do it, right? Where my confidence is the current understanding that I do that task well. So my confidence starts from my self-belief. You put in the work, and through preparation, time, practice, however you want to say it, that confidence grows that you're able to handle that task, that quality, whatever it is, with assurance. And so that's kind of how I define those two things differently, but I think they definitely go hand in hand together.
Yeah, and I think there's an important aspect there that you mentioned that a lot of people may forget about or may not think about. And that's in which you have to have that self belief. You have to grow in your confidence too. Because even though you know how to do something, or you think you have the confidence to be able to achieve something, it comes in small incremental steps. And really, it goes back to that hard work. It goes back to that understanding. It goes back to the opportunities that you are putting yourself in place, or the opportunities that you're putting in place in which you can then grow in your confidence. So I know one thing that a lot of people struggle with is patience. So prime example is, whenever we're learning something new, when I'm learning something new, I'm usually one to get pretty quick to like, I think I can do this. I think I can go ahead and just try it once, even though I really haven't done it yet. So I'm quick to test, and a lot of times it's harmless. But I'll provide you with a little story here of a previous weekend recently where I had the self belief that I could do something because I ignorantly did it once before, and then I was quickly brought back to earth with a gusto during the actual try that I'm talking about. So recently, a hobby and experience that we picked up is mountain biking, and we were out on Arbor Hills Trail in Plano, which is in a city next to us. And they have a intermediate to advanced mountain biking course. And I am by all means a beginner mountain biker. There's no other label I can give myself right now than that. And so, rode the trail a little bit and went down the paths. I did everything fine the very first time. Second time I did it was with a group of friends. I met up with you, and then we went on about our merry way. I actually came to a point in which I had a bit of a stumble and a fell, and actually broke a mount on my GoPro camera, so I wasn't able to use it anymore. Um, but it was at a particular junction, right? And that was rocky downgrade, I guess you can say, surrounded by trees. Again, beginner. So I identified that I was probably going to need to work up to being able to do that again. So long story short, I think we went around two more times. I didn't try it. And then finally, the very last time I said, you know what, I'm going to go ahead and try this one more time. I'd done it the first time and I knew I could do it, but I hadn't built up or put in the work to really understand and gain that confidence that would allow me to that wouldn't allow me to second guess who I am and my skill set. Little did I think that I would have the result that I did. Came around the corner, all things were going according to plan until my handlebar clipped the tree and I flipped over the handlebars and landed directly on my back with my with my bike on top of me. And I believe the words that came out of my mouth were help, in about that loud of a voice. So Greg, so I appreciate you lifting that up, that bike up off of me, and I was a little banged and bruised up, but you know what? The ability to try it, the ability to now know that what I need to do, I'm going to put in some reps and some time on that location, and I will get over that because I am confident that I have the plan and action and roadmap for me to be able to overcome that obstacle.
Yeah, and I think it's also important to share that the space that you crashed was a huge drop, and I don't even know the angle that you would describe this drop, but just it was incredibly steep of nothing but rocks that you were going down, and it was without a doubt an advanced part of the track. And I think the other thing to keep in mind is mountain bike riding is an extreme sport, and I think extreme is also code word for you need to be extremely careful, and that kind of brings up I think another word that I think comes along with confidence and self belief, and maybe kind of is the opposition of those two, which is arrogance. And I know that there's a lot of times where I will arrogantly do something, and that comes out of thin air. And so arrogance doesn't have the work, the preparation, the confidence. Arrogance is kind of that almost entitled belief of being able to do something. And typically, where arrogance shows up, disaster follows. And that's not to use you an example. I wouldn't necessarily say that you are being arrogant as you went down that really incredibly challenging obstacle. But I think you made the point where it's a combination of self-belief and hey, you want to try and you wanted to push it. It just was a dangerous situation that you could have gotten obviously severely hurt, but at the same time, it's a balance, and you got to push it, and then you got to know when to hold back. And we don't always make the right decision, but I have to say that I was inspired by you going after it, and so I would not have described that exact situation as arrogance, but it just brought that to the forefront of my mind. And I think it's an important thing to bring up.
Yeah, to be honest, I'm still reeling. Still got a little bit of some road rash, if you will, and some stuff. I'm back to being able to jog and run a little bit. Did that this morning, taking it easy because I will go back and I will conquer the rock fall, whatever that location is.
Yeah.
But I know that it is again the ability for me to have the self belief and to build in my confidence over that. And with time, that's going to be nothing. I saw so many people go over it, and it's not a big deal for them. So I also saw a lot of people that were walking right down it too. So
You saw
um,
me do that.
yeah, I saw people that were smarter than me that day too. So, but that's the thing too. It's understanding and putting in the work, and then knowing that you can grow in it is a very important key factor. But Greg, I
Yeah.
know that one of the stories that you highlighted in the book is something that I was extremely impressed by. And I wanted you to talk a little bit about that story that you highlighted in the book.
Yeah, and so I'll lead into that story by saying the following. I think it's critical when we talk about confidence. I think each of us as an individual owe it to ourselves to really transparently look at our lives and be really honest with ourselves and identify where are the areas in life that we really lack confidence, that by building confidence in those areas would really add a lot of value to our life. And as I reflect on me personally, and I document this in the book, there were several areas of my life that I realized I had a pretty big confidence deficit. And that was my self image, my ability to overcome obstacles, my ability to handle difficult circumstances, my ability to reject the neediness of external validation, always needing other people to affirm me. Um, just being honest and transparent with myself, being able to own failures and mistakes. I mean, I was the quickest to be able to point blame at somebody else or come up with an excuse of um, why I didn't do well with something or why I failed at something. I just did not have that self confidence. And in many cases, there was also the lack of me being able to express the things that I believed and things that I believed to be truthful because I feared what other people would think about, or I feared my ability to share and communicate those things. So, in all those areas, over the course of probably the last 10 years, I've placed a lot of emphasis understanding how can I build confidence in those areas? How can I build confidence in being able to prepare for how to handle those circumstances? And that kind of leads into the story that you prompted me with. One of the areas I think that I really wanted to grow and just I knew it would be a confidence booster in just about every aspect of my life, and that was learning a mixed martial art. And the one that jumped out to me was something that's called Krav Maga. And so you and I, Sammy, have both been fans of boxing all of our lives and combat sports, mixed martial arts. And so it's always been something that I've been interested in. But again, just being completely transparent, physical hand-to-hand combat, while it's cool to sit back on a couch and talk about like how awesome it is, to actually do it was, at least for me, was a whole new level of a fear that I realized what an amazing opportunity to overcome. And so as I reflected more on my self-confidence and really realized that being able to defend myself in a physical altercation would not only add to my self-confidence, but really also hit a goal of my health and wellness, um, I started putting in time to understanding which mixed martial arts do I want to go after. And Krav Maga really stood out to me because it was a combination of many, many different forms of mixed martial arts. And it was all based in real world situations that potentially could happen. Whether you're in a crowded situation, you find yourself in some type of social environment that gets dangerous. How can you de-escalate the situation, A, or B, how can you defend yourself if you're forced to be in a fight? And so I actually did some research and found the top Krav Maga gym in Dallas. And I'll never forget this. I drove there just to observe. I wanted to go and just watch a couple of the classes. And, I thought that would help me understand, is this something that I want to do or something that is not going to be worth my time? And when I walked in, I saw people of all different shapes and sizes, all different races, and all different genders, men and women, boys and girls, you name it. And these people were getting after it. And man, they were sparring, they were kicking, punching, doing cardio drills, and I mean, you name it. And I was literally blown away by what I saw. And it, on one hand, it excited me, and on the second hand, it really, really made me fearful because of watching, especially these two guys that were just, for lack of a better description, punching and kicking the crap out of each other. Now they're wearing pads, but at the same time, you saw the danger, and you just, it was scary, thinking, can I do this? And when I went in to watch the class, I obviously had to get permission from the lead instructor, and so he said, okay, well, when you're done, just hang around and we'll talk afterwards. And I was like, crap, that's where he's going to pin me down and like make me join this thing. So I got to start coming up with excuses on how to get out of this. And sure enough, when it was over, he came, we sat down, and I gave him a little story about, why I was interested in joining the gym. And quite honestly, man, he sold me on it and just told me the way that it worked, and how they worked with us and how they could teach us. And I didn't want to admit to him that I was scared. I wanted to presume a level of confidence, which again at the time was arrogance. But I'll never forget this. He told me after a year, typically of training, the top students will be invited to take a test that will basically challenge them on every type of fighting technique and style and maneuver that we'd learned over the course of the year. But on top of that, he would kick our ass with more cardio and more stress tests than anything we've ever been a part of. And then on top of that, we would have to make sure to be able to do the actual fighting techniques to perfection, to be able to get our quote unquote first belt. And when he told me that, I remember just being so nervous and my heart just kind of like dropped into my stomach. But I realized, you know what, this opportunity to accomplish this goal would literally enhance my confidence in every aspect of my life, mentally and physically. I've got to do it. And at the time, I had zero self-belief in my understanding to be able to, take on this challenge. But I'll sum it up. And over the course of the next year of training 3 days a week, of sacrificing my social life, sacrificing a lot of hours that I could have been doing other things, the day before I went to take that 4-hour stress test, that a year before I was literally terrified of the thought of doing it, I was so confident because of my preparation, my training, my organization, the work I put in, that I not only knew that I was going to accomplish that belt, my goal had switched between accomplishing getting a belt to now becoming the top person in the class and doing it and scoring the highest grade, because I was that confident in my abilities because of the training and the work and the perseverance. And to this day, I still, when I encounter difficult situations, let's just take this for example, mountain biking, which you just shared the story of you and I both getting into this new hobby. I have 100% self-belief that I will be able to obtain the confidence of becoming a really good mountain bike rider and going over some of these important and challenging trails because of what I learned from going through the Krav Maga class. I'm kind of like, man, if I can do that, I can do anything.
Yeah, I love that story because I do remember the day that you told me that you were taking the test, and then I believe I texted you as soon as I heard, or maybe I texted you maybe before I even heard that you were done with it. But I remember it was a big deal, and I was extremely proud. And I was like, man, I honestly I couldn't believe it had been a year that you had been training for it. I thought it had been much more condensed timeline. But yeah, true to your nature, the way that you go about just life in general too, putting together the plan and growing in that confidence, putting in the extra work that's needed. I knew it was going to be something important to you. So that's always been a cool story. And that's why I'm glad we highlighted it in the book, and I'm glad that you were able to share it here too.
Yeah, and I think that's what's interesting is it's kind of just showed me again personally. It validated the truth that confidence doesn't just get born out of thin air, and it takes preparation. You and I both have the saying that we love to say: preparation equals separation. And in so many cases, whether it's public speaking for your work, whether it's being able to have good communication with people in your life, whether it's being able to handle a difficult conversation or having to correct somebody, and just not knowing how to do those things, your confidence in doing those things are born from the practice and being able to do it, the studying, the effort, the organization, the plan, um, and whatever it is in your life that you're lacking confidence, that's the answer. And I look at myself currently in my life, and I realize that every week, every month, every year is bringing on new challenges and new opportunities. And while I have, I think, a universal confidence in myself, as a result of really working on that the past 10 years. Every single day, there are new challenges that I do not have confidence in at the moment being able to handle. But I'm so positive in what it takes to gain that confidence. It typically comes quickly. My confidence in being able to obtain that confidence is very, very high. And I realize now more than anything, it's I have confidence that I can put in the work to get done what needs to be done to grow in that area. And of all the things that I've been pursuing growth in, I think growth in my self-confidence is has been one of the most beneficial. And I'll also share this. I think the confidence in not fearing failure, but viewing failure as an opportunity to learn and taking risks and not shying away from something simply because I'm fearful of it or I don't know how to do it. And it's just been a tremendous asset in the overall joy of my life these past, I say past decade, but really probably the past 5 or 6 years.
Yeah, and it goes back to a lot of the things that we've said in previous chats and discussions. Is that also there's a bit of self-awareness too. You know, understanding where you are and what you're doing and where you need to go. It's something that I know that early in my career, when I think it was the first job I had out of college, was working for a litigation support company. I went from a solo operator type position as a graphic designer to then managing a team of people on of production people. I think within 6 months, pretty soon after being hired on, and talk about being kind of thrown into the fire. I was able to manage my department well, and I was a very technical lead for different cities and all that. But the try looking at people that are, at least twice your age, if not three times your age, and then managing them, their schedules, their lives, and there's anywhere between 15 to 22 of them. And so I think turning it a story from a professional life is something that I learned really quickly was that if you don't have confidence in yourself, um, it shows, especially if you're in some type of leadership position or you're trying to move into a leadership type role. Um, but also, fake confidence shows as well. So I've never really liked the saying "fake it till you make it" because there's certain tasks or items you can do and you can kind of get away with a little bit of that, but when it really comes down to it, the fake it till you make it mentality isn't really one that's going to get you to that level of confidence. It'll get you some learnings, typically some lumps as well. But I think that the key thing that I'm trying to portray is that, when you're looking at a spot where a leader should be growing in his confidence or her confidence, it's coming from the repetition, putting in some of that extra time, developing your plan that you're wanting to utilize, which the pursuit of growth is something that we didn't even really have whenever I was at that stage of my life. What I did was I decided, I was like, what I need to do is for me to be confident around my employees, I need to get to know my employees. It's like that they can't just come to me and ask me for something and me give it to them and that's the end of the transaction. I needed to know what they liked. I need to know their hobbies. I need to know their work style. I needed to understand why they looked stressed or why they came in happy. So I wanted to integrate myself, and that was some extra time that I took out of my day to make sure that I was, really being involved in the people and becoming more of what I would soon learn after as being a servant leader is how can I help other people. And so it got to the point where I was like, I knew everyone's kind of family history, everyone's probably more than I needed to know because people were just like an open book and will let you learn more. But I made it a regiment of my day to have time to speak to them, to walk the floor, to ask them to lunch, different things like that. So much so that then when we were having, they were having birthday parties, they would invite us, they would invite me and some of the other managers and some of the other guys to go to their birthday parties and just like hang out with them. But it all stemmed back to a great relationship that I developed because I had the confidence to be able to put together the plan to be able to then interact with people, learn people, show them that I am their leader, show them that I can help them along their way. And I got better at it, got better at it, got better at it. And really, I grew in my confidence by being able to stand up, by being able to speak my mind, by being able to know and show that I was prepared for our conversations as well. And so that was kind of a more of a professional type situation I'll never forget. It's like it wasn't the pursuit of growth at the time, but it was ingrained in me from the very start. You know, it's really what formulated into the thoughts and theories that we have with us today.
Yeah, I love that about like relationships because I think a lot of people don't necessarily think about the importance of confidence and how it applies to relationships, but it's so important. Everything from really learning how do you lead conversations, how are you transparent and vulnerable with people to help kind of build more trust with each other. And then I think from a professional standpoint, man, you hit such a home run on what you said because in today's working environment, you have so much friction between people. When let's just be transparent and honest, work is difficult, and many times there's more than one right way to do something, and there's more than one consequences from each direction that you choose, and sometimes just communicating can be such a challenge for people for a variety of reasons, fears of what people are going to think or how they're going to respond, or are they going to be agitated, and the list goes on and on and on and on. Well, what's amazing is take the same circumstances and apply it to a friend. And if it's somebody that you've got a relationship with, those conversations are easier. The criticism doesn't sting. The suggestions are helpful. And friendships come from time and effort and getting to know people. And that's a huge confidence booster, or a huge, I think, asset of having confidence is knowing that, hey, it's very important for me to build relationships with colleagues, with family members, with neighbors, with people in our community leaders. It goes on and on and on, and it makes difficult conversations so much easier. And then I want to piggyback on that. An area that I really needed to grow in my confidence, it may be the number one area. And to be quite honest, I'm still working on it. And there's so much value in it. And that is the confidence in asking for help. The confidence in not thinking that you have to know all the answers. The confidence in not thinking that by admitting you don't know something or that you made a mistake is not the end of the world. And the understanding that you're going to get better by going to people to help you, and having that vulnerability, or maybe even being able to check your ego, which is something that we talk about in a lot of the chapters of the Pursuit of Growth, how our ego can really lead us down so many bad roads if we don't have a healthy balance with that ego. And man, the confidence to say, hey, this is an area that I'm not good in. I'm going to be confident to ask for help. Man, what a valuable leadership skill that is, without a doubt.
Yeah, and I don't want to cite any specific examples, but I've had times recently in which people came to me and they said, you know, like, hey, I'm seeking some guidance. It seems like you understand this particular scenario that I'm in. And again, it's come from a lot of understanding and practice and time and honestly sitting down sometimes and just thinking through those scenarios, preparing, like we mentioned. And so I think it's key. It's somebody that also that, if you're facing a challenge, you know, getting to that point where you can ask for help and figuring out the right people to ask as well. Because sometimes you want to make sure or all the times you want to make sure you're surrounding yourself with the right types of people.
Yeah.
The people that whenever you do ask for that help are going to provide the right advice, the right guidance, or maybe even just a few nuggets of information that are going to allow you to really work through that scenario or situation that you're in. And we're right. We often do find that in the times of greatest despair, especially in a work situation, whenever we feel like there are these consequences that we might face, that might be, quote unquote, dire consequences, like losing a job or whatever that may be. So, yeah, I believe that, there's many aspects to having confidence and growing in your confidence and learning more about confidence in yourself and testing it. is a key attribute to somebody who's living that life, pursuing growth, and in that personal development style of living.
Yeah. And when I look at confidence too, I think it's important to really look at what are the things that you fear in life. And it's interesting. We talk about fear framing and really getting to root issues. I think as a society, not even as a society, as a world, as people, we often don't drill down to the root issue of challenges and things that we find difficulties in, whether it's huge social issues or if it's sometimes just personal challenges. We like to address symptoms and not necessarily the core issues, right? And each of us are going to be a little bit different, or in many cases, a lot different. But this is an exercise that I've put a lot of time in me in understanding what are some of my core fears in life. And this is probably, to go in depth into it would be another podcast for another time. But I'll just share that most things in life that I fear, most things in life that I don't have confidence in, as I start drilling them down, I get to one primary variable, and that is the fear of what other people think. That is at the root of most of my troubles, can be drilled down to what other people think. And so I ask myself, how can I address that? How can I get confidence in my understanding that, comparing yourself to others is the thief of joy. Comparing yourself to yourself and your own abilities, that really motivates action and really motivates, I think, a healthy sense of ego. But the more you keep thinking about, at least for me, the more I think about how other people perceive me, whether it's I'm nervous about speaking in front of a group of people. Well, why? I'm worried they're going to think of me some way. I'm worried about having a conversation with somebody. Well, I'm worried about what they're going to think of me. I'm worried about trying this new whatever. I'm worried about if I fail, what people are going to think about me. I'm worried if I lose my job. Quite honestly, I'm not worried about my income or my home or how it's going to affect me. I'm worried about what other people are going to think. Oh, Greg lost his job. He must have done A, B, C, and D. Well, the reality is, all those scenarios that I listed, people probably aren't thinking at all. It's all in my mind,
Yep.
right? Yet it's causing me, I just said that was my number one fear. I mean, think about that. It's causing me so much strife that really, to work on how do I overcome that? How do I replace those thoughts with strong thoughts? How do I put a plan in place to get confidence in some of these areas? It's a deep, deep thing that I think it's personal for all of us. It's different for all of us. But being able to grow in confidence in the areas that you fear can really, really take that grip of fear out of your life. And wow, what a positive impact it's made for me. And it will be a lifelong, ongoing battle that I fight, but it's worth it every single day.
Yeah, and that's a really good thing. I took some notes there actually as we were talking, just because there's some things we can highlight towards the end of the podcast with some action items and some things that you can do to help yourself grow in confidence. But there's the opportunities that you have when you're faced with challenges, and the opportunity that you have is to be able to ask yourself some of those questions, because a lot of times that lack of confidence, that lack of self-belief is oftentimes just a lack of information. And so like finding out if there is any other information, learning how to ask good questions. I think that was a key point that I took away from your last part you just spoke about. But learn how you can develop your system to grow in that confidence. Getting the right information is key. Getting timely information and making sure that it fits with what you're doing. All the information is out there at our fingertips all the time, anytime you want it. You can wake up from a dead slumber and reach over and pick up your phone and find answers to some of those crazy dreams you were having. Like it's there for us. So always understand that you have to figure out like a way to enhance and develop yourself through those tough times, and utilize the information that's presented to you now, and then identify areas in which you need to find that new information. And you'll just definitely see like the self-belief and the confidence start to build upon each other and compound upon each other, to where then you're free and you're able to actually think differently. So first you need to be able to understand how to think, and then you can even think differently and expand upon that too.
Yeah, I think I love what you just said. It reminded me of of a phrase that I heard a long time ago, that confidence is like a muscle. You know, the more you build it, the stronger it gets. And as you start growing in confidence in other areas of your life, it it builds up the confidence in these other areas. And it's like wildfire, it just spreads and it recognizes itself. You know, I always tell people confidence recognizes itself, and it just continues to grow and grow and grow the more that you feed into it. Um, and so I love that you bring that up there. And then you said something else that resonated with me that I think can just be summed up in a very important word, and that's action.
Mhm.
And, you know, people, you can talk all day about the things that you want to change. You can talk all day about the things that you want to do. You can research, you can plan, which are absolutely necessary. But if you don't start taking action and applying that knowledge, and I think you and we both talk about, if we look back at the history of our lives, we were very blessed and privileged to have a lot of great information shared with us, to have a lot of opportunities given to us, but we failed at applying that knowledge and applying those opportunities, and actually doing the work that really could have done some pretty amazing things. We're fortunate that we're able to come around on that, and be able to make that understanding, and understand that importance. I think we have gratitude for that now. But what an important thing to apply knowledge and take action.
Yeah, I think that's a key to a lot of what we talk about with the pursuit of growth. And we always call this book the action manual, like the field guide. We have a lot of little pet nicknames for it too, but this is the book is written in such a way in which it is able to give you, honestly, as you go through it, the confidence that you're building, because there's repetition that's included. There's more information in each chapter, and you're building upon your plan. You're learning how to learn. You're learning how to understand, to build a framework so you can build upon all the different aspects and chapters that are listed within the book. So action is a very key word, and you're right. Sometimes, sometimes you just kind of have to jump in the river and learn how to swim as well. But just kind of know where your exit points are, and maybe there's a little lifeline for you along the way too. So with that, Greg, I know that we talked about confidence, and we could probably talk on this topic for hours and hours on end. I'm giving lots of examples, but really want us to hammer home a couple of points for everyone that's watching on what's a couple of key takeaways from the conversation, but then also what are some of the things that you can provide for someone that is lacking that in their confidence right now?
Yeah, well, I think first and foremost is buy the book and read the chapter on confidence, because it definitely goes into a little bit more of the foundational importance and applications of confidence than what we talked about here on this live chat. But, you know, I think for people that are struggling with confidence, I think it starts with you've got to be honest with yourself, and you've got to ask yourself, where am I lacking confidence and why? And I think you've got to do some honest reflection and say, and be transparent, and list out, these are the areas or the things in life that I'm unconfident in. And then I think it kind of goes to what we talk about with the pursuit of growth. It's, you know, what are your goals slash plan for being able to grow in that confidence? And that's not something that you just come up with out of thin air. I think it takes, I think it takes some introspective, a look at yourself. I think it's talking to other people that excel in those areas. I think it's doing research. I think it's whatever you can do to start building in a plan of, again, it goes back to that word we just talked about, action items that you can start doing. So I'll take a generic example. You're terrified of speaking in front of people, but you know that's a valuable asset, whether it's for your job or for whatever reason you have. Well, guess what? You're going to have to start speaking in front of people. So maybe start understanding, what are the reasons why you're afraid of speaking in front of people? What are some small things that you can start doing? Maybe you can start speaking in front of some small groups on things that you're very confident in. Maybe you realize that it's not so much that you're scared about speaking in front of people, it's that you're not confident in what you're speaking about. But when you start learning really, 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 really well on the things that you're talking about, you become an expert in that, and you plan out exactly how you're going to speak, what you're going to say. You practice it over and over. You record yourself. You do it in front of the mirror. You do it in front of friends. You get that preparation. You practice. You get the repetition. Then when it comes time to do it for a group of 10 people, not quite as hard. When you do it for a group of 20 people, not so hard. In fact, that's kind of a story that is my story of being really nervous to speak in front of people. And now I get so excited to speak in front of a group of 1,000 people. And I've been able to do it a handful of times, and I absolutely love it. In fact, I prefer speaking to a group of 1,000 over a group of 10 any day. And it just came from preparation, practice, and getting really good at the subject that I was talking about. Now, if I'm going to be transparent, if you told me, Greg, tomorrow you're going to get up in front of a group of 1,000 people and we want you to explain calculus to them, I would not have confidence. So give me maybe 50 years to learn calculus to be able to speak it, and I will have confidence in doing it. But again, I think that would be something that I would share with people to sum that up. Identify the areas you don't have confidence, research, understand what you can do, and start putting together a plan of steps to be able to get there. And I'm telling you, confidence recognizes itself. Those small little steps will get you to where you want to go if you've got the desire to do it.
Yeah, I love that example because there was public speaking is something that you and I have had to do a lot with the careers that we've chosen, and it's still something that I still do on a daily basis. And when you first start into it, I was more of a shyer kid growing up, but I didn't like speaking to people, but that's what it was. I mean, I didn't like speaking to big groups, and that's what it was though, because I didn't know my information. I didn't put in the work. Right? I have it all down. So that was the scariest part. And for me, it wasn't so much that I was, too worried about what other people were thinking about me. It's just that I just didn't want to know. I just needed to know what I needed to talk about. So even to this day, like, if I'm going to speak on a new topic, I joined a new company recently. I'm deep dive into the website, deep dive into the materials, and understanding what we are, services we provide, building and crafting the stories. And a lot of times, what ends up happening is that you start to build your confidence so well that people don't even see you as giving a speech or standing up and lecturing about a particular topic. They see you as having a conversation with them, and that's the level you want to get to. And that's the level that I always I know when I'm starting to hit my stride and I'm gaining confidence in what I know is when somebody is open to asking those questions to you during that time, and it's not throwing you off because you're no longer reading down the script. You're having that conversation. You're able to answer questions. You're able to think while you're talking. So that is a really key step into learning, especially growing in confidence and your skill set within public speaking, because it is such a fear for everybody. I wanted to touch on 3 points for people. So number one, self-awareness, right? Understand where you are in your confidence level. Go back and understand why. This is point number 2. Go back and understand why you are fearful right now. Why don't you have that confidence? It goes back to that fear setting exercise that you talked about as well. But getting to those root problems, I love that example. And then third is being able to ask those questions. It pairs with number 2, but ask the questions about why you feel that you are not able to have that confidence that you feel like you should have it now. You might identify that, having that real truth and transparency with yourself and saying like, I don't have the confidence because I have not taken the time yet. And that's what it's really going to take is a little bit of time. And sometimes you don't have the time. So you got to modify. You have to do what you can do. But again, preparation equals separation, and being able to share, being able to ask yourself those true questions, be transparent with yourself, and then also have that self-awareness too, I think are key factors in growing in your confidence.
Yeah, I'm going to see if I can pull this up very quickly, but there was a quote that I'd like to leave the listeners with that I think piggybacks right on what you said. And this is from Roger Staubach. And for those youngins out there that don't know who Roger Staubach is, he was the quarterback of the Dallas Cowboys in the I guess primarily in the the late 60s, 70s, I guess early 80s too. I may have my time right, but he's considered one of the greatest football players, one of the greatest quarterbacks of all time, and he is one of the most respected individuals in Dallas, Texas. And you and I actually have some funny stories from our interactions with Roger Staubach that we can get into at another time.
Yeah.
But he has a quote that I came across years and years ago, and I haven't read it again until tonight. But what you just said made me think of it. But Roger Staubach says, confidence doesn't come out of nowhere. It's a result of something, hours and days and weeks and years of constant work and dedication.
Mhm.
That, my friends, is confidence.
Well, that's awesome, man. I'm glad. I think you might have shared that quote with me one time. I really appreciate you sharing that. And that's something I'm actually going to look up and post on a virtual sticky note on my computer for a while, because, as you know, like things are changing daily right now in these crazy times that we're living in, and it's important to have that confidence in yourself and your actions and your know-how as well. So again, that's a great quote. And yes, we'll get into the Mr. Staubach stories sometime, maybe over a cold one with some friends and family.
Yeah, and and then you just made me think of one more thing. So this is the last thing that I'll say. I also think it's important while we talk about as you grow in your confidence, you don't need as much external validation of people telling you how good you are, how great you are. It comes from yourself, right? Although let's just be honest, it feels good when people compliment you or people, say things to recognize what you're doing. Just like I'm a huge believer, and it should be a priority of our lives to share that affirmation with other people. We should be constantly building each other up. But I also think it's important, especially in the areas that you may feel a little bit of weakness in your confidence, is write down, whether it's a sticky note, whether it's an Excel page like I do, but come up with some personal affirmations of things that you've done, things that you're doing, things that you're succeeding in that are leading to that confidence, and review those things. I personally have a list of affirmations that I read every day that just remind me of who I want to be, who I'm capable of being, and the way that I want to behave and handle the circumstances and difficult situations that I might find myself in. And the more that I look at that, it just kind of builds into my subconscious. And I find often when I encounter one of those circumstances and maybe that fear takes place, one of the first things I think about is that affirmation, and it reminds me this is an opportunity, because confidence isn't the absence of fear, but it's like courage. It's the ability to then continue to move forward in the right way despite that. And so, find little affirmations, find successes that you've done, things that you've excelled in, things that give you confidence, and review them and take pride in them, and use those to help build your confidence in who you are and what you're capable of doing. I think that's absolutely critical.
I love it. Well, on that note, I think that I look forward to the next chat that we're going to have. More chapters coming up. Again, like Greg mentioned, you can see here our book, The Pursuit of Growth, available on our website. You can go to livetpg.com. That's short for livethepursuitofgrowth.com. Get your book, get your copy, get your fancy bookmark like I have. And then go through the chapters, and then please reach out. You can find us via social media, Live TPG or The Pursuit of Growth, anywhere online. And we look forward to interacting and communicating with you further. If you have questions about confidence, you need guidance, you need help, you can also reach us at info@livetpg.com or at both of our either respective names. So Sammy at livetpg.com or Greg at livetpg.com.
And that's Greg with one G at the front and one G at the end. With that, peace.